Award-winning futurist researcher and keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton joining us on Canada Now for his weekly visit. And Nick, we look at El Salvador this time, adopted Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah, it's the first country in the world to do so. And I sent you a note yesterday saying we need to cover this because I think that this is a really interesting turn of events in the cryptocurrency world, especially for the holders of Bitcoin. Now they have a place where they can actually go and live and spend that money on normal things in the world.
Yeah, and maybe El Salvador is where this needed to happen first because only 30% of citizens have access to financial services.
Yeah, but at the same time, culturally, is that embedded? And will they step over that idea into, having, crypto wallets and smartphones and the ability to be able to spend that in the marketplace? I think that this has got some good points, but there's definitely some contentious points to this whole move as well.
Yeah, so El Salvador is designing a new law that would grant permanent residency to any individual who invests into the country's economy using Bitcoin. So it seems like they're all in. Like they want everybody using this.
Yeah, they want people to move in, to buy cars, expensive goods, houses, land, businesses. They people to use it as an investment vehicle, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of people out there that are actual crypto millionaires as well, right? So there's. It's really interesting. There's 2.2 million people with Bitcoin worth over $10,000, right?
Oh, wow.
So and there's 476,000 people that are worth over $100,000. These are the people that are going to go out there. But there's nearly 100,000 Bitcoin millionaires. So if you think about this, and you're suddenly like, okay, say 3,000 or 4,000, Bitcoin millionaires suddenly come to El Salvador, start buying, property, and there's value coming into the country from a crypto perspective. The idea that potentially that could, buoy the economy, and then maybe it can be adopted more widely in sort of daily transactions. But I'm really skeptical that you're going to have someone going down the market to buy loaves of bread and fruit and vegetables and whatever, with their crypto wallet, right? If you think about this, I mean, they're guaranteeing and they're sort of tethering this in a way to the US dollar. So $1 is worth 0.0000027 Bitcoin.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
when you actually, well, no, it doesn't sound good, but if you think that's the value of it, right? So if you were going to buy a $3 loaf of bread, the sign will say $3 or 0.000081 Bitcoin. And then, from a practical and cognitive perspective, this all gets a bit funky. I think that for me, I still see a lot of cryptocurrencies out there. I've got some Ethereum, not too much. I just want to see how it worked. I'm not that bullish on cryptocurrencies. I think that this idea of a crypto state is going to be a future state of those currencies and ownership, because slowly people are going to be pushed out of places where they can mine it and spend it and the such like. The trouble with Bitcoin is that it went from being something that was idealized as a currency to an asset class. That asset class is pumped and dumped, and all sorts of external forces are literally saying today's at a super high and tomorrow it's crashed 35-60% and whatever. That's not going to be really stable for a lot of people. So, for example, go to El Salvador, you buy a home for $100,000, right, in Bitcoin. That person's like, yes, it's great. The next day, it's worth, he's got $130,000 in Bitcoin in his wallet. Perfect. But then the next day, he's got $60,000 worth of Bitcoin in his wallet. This is going to be really difficult. How do you ride that out? It's like, what the vehicle is going to be able to convert that Bitcoin back to fiat currency, say the US dollar. How quickly can you do that? And is that what people want to do? Because there's the big philosophy in the cryptocurrency Bitcoin world, which is like, hold on to your currency, don't, keep the market buoyed, hold on. Elon Musk recently sold a bunch to show the liquidity of it. and the market like turned against him, where he was like their biggest hero, right? So it's so funky. And the early days, and I knew some of the people in the early days of mining Bitcoin back in 2012, 2013. It was really interesting how you could practically use it. But now, today, it's like it's this ethereal asset class that's out there being, sort of traded, pumped and dumped and mined. And I've got tons of friends that set up rigs and they're mining Bitcoin and other crypto coins that are out there, and figuratively earning money. Now, is that going to be available to the average El Salvadorian? That's the big question I have around this move.
Well, what do you think about what the government is doing? Because they're saying, hey, all businesses, they've got to accept Bitcoin for goods or services, but we'll help out those businesses who aren't willing to take on the risk of a volatile cryptocurrency and exchange the Bitcoin for dollars. What do you think of that approach?
No, I think that it's really solid. So what does that, is there some sort of process at the end of each day or at that particular point in time? How is El Salvador and the banking entities within it, how are they going to do that practically on an ongoing basis? And suddenly, say Bitcoin and that the use of that cryptocurrency becomes hugely popular. How do they process it quickly? You can't process transactions that quickly anymore because the immutable blockchain means that you have to every transaction needs to go against every wallet in existence. Right. So that there's no central point. It's completely decentralized. There's a lot of holes here. So I'm going to be watching this very closely to see if this is something that can actually work. I would love to see cryptocurrency sort of settle down into something that's practical and usable on a daily basis. But I think that we're a long way from that right now. Okay,
so let's say it takes off and it really works. Is government going to get in the way somehow? Because all of a sudden, this is something that works. We want a bit of that. We want to get in on that. Would government somehow get in the way of that at all? The success of it and people's usage of it?
Well, specific governments, if it's working within your country and it's actually having some sort of financial boost, or it aids financial inclusion, investment, tourism, innovation, economic development, if it delivers all those things, then you're going to give that the thumbs up and it's all good. But then you've got, one of the big aspects of this particular law that kicked in, the Bitcoin law, is that they're thinking that it might affect like the negotiations that are happening right now with the IMF, and other countries, and it's really thorny from a geopolitical perspective as well. And this is just really interesting. So it could, some people have said that it could likely only compound concerns around corruption, money laundering, and independence of the regulatory agencies, people not wanting to pay tax and whatever. So, is El Salvador just opening the door to criminal elements that hold a huge amount of Bitcoin as well? This is one of those big, hairy problems, Jeff, that's like, it's a huge opportunity, but it could also deliver some really interesting challenges to their country and their economy as a whole. And is El Salvador suddenly going to be full of people that aren't El Salvadorian, that hold this ideology, and they don't care about the people that ultimately they're dealing with on a daily basis? And they're just escaping, the tax ramifications in the countries in which they reside.
So the government may promote Bitcoin mining. What is that?
So each Bitcoin is generated by solving a complex algorithm. Bitcoin mining rigs are just very, very strong processing rigs to solve that algorithm. So Bitcoin mining is you run a rig, and I've got friends that do this, and it sits in the corner of your room, and every few hours it solves enough of the algorithm to generate a certain amount of value, a certain amount of Bitcoin, certain amount of whatever other cryptocurrency you've got out there. So that's what mining is. It's been outlawed in China, but in China they had huge warehouses just literally mining Bitcoin. there's a huge contention here around the amount of electricity it uses. If that electricity was generated from, fossil fuel sources, then that's contentious from the environmental impact. So that's a big discussion right now in the cryptocurrency world. We've seen Elon Musk talking about that. We've also seen a lot of people, I think Elizabeth Warren in the last couple of days was sort of very concerned on that environmental implication as well. So it's the idea of scarcity. There's only so many Bitcoin out there, and you have to earn it, and you have to earn that by solving these algorithms.
Okay.
And really that means in El Salvador, who can afford these pieces of kit, which could be like $2,000 to $4,000 for one particular unit in a Bitcoin mining rig? Who can afford that? So this is why, I don't think El Salvadorians are necessarily going to be the people that are mining this. The idea is bring it in, get people to spend a lot of it, distribute that in a way to economic development and spending and investment and whatever. And then suddenly everything's going to be well. I think that there's going to be a rocky road for a couple of years, and it's either going to work in a number of ways, and then they're going to focus in on that, or it's going to fail and it's going to be really challenging, and the El Salvadorian government are going to have to make a U-turn.
Okay, so Canadians are hearing more and more and more about Bitcoin, and obviously it depends on how El Salvador does here with this. But if you were able to look at it right now and say, how much is this going to be a regular in Canadians' lives? Like, how far away are we from that? Is there any way of knowing that at this point?
So Bitcoin, I think less so. I think that it's going to maintain its position as an asset class. And you've got big banks that are getting behind it and starting to do ETFs and a whole bunch of different things. The average Canadian could potentially use digital currencies that will be actually securitized against the value of the Canadian dollar. And they'll be able to use digital wallets, and they'll be backed by the Bank of Canada. I think that that's an inevitable future. I think that that's going to happen. Will those particular monetary instruments be mineable like Bitcoin? No, I don't think in the same way, right? So it's literally a fiat currency linked to a cryptocurrency or a digital currency. It's getting so interesting out there. It's about time that the big banking institutions and the central banks were shaken up and really sort of challenged with their business model. I just think that it's going to take us, the next decade is going to be super interesting. But I think the big thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have a very large company like Google or Amazon or Facebook come out with their own version of currency, and that's going to directly challenge the Canadian dollar. In fact, Facebook released a platform called Libra, where it's got a group of vendors and service providers that you can spend Libra as a securitized stable coin, as it's called. And that's starting to really shake up like the US sort of monetary authorities, the SEC. They're based in Switzerland. So I love this in terms of futures, because it's the Wild West, Jeff. Yeah. And when it comes to thinking about financial inclusion and shaking up that system, I think it's great. But on the flip side of that, a lot of people are just trying to make as much money as they can, and they don't care about that bigger sort of vision for what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies could be.
We'll be talking about this again and often. I have a feeling. Check out NikolasBadminton.com. Futurist researcher, keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton. Always a pleasure, my friend. Bug you again in a week.
Thanks, El Jefe.
Thanks, man.